A brilliant young architect designs this gem
Tony, oh my gosh, look at all this light.
long before he's a legend of design.
Pietro Belluschi, innovative architectural designs. They evoke the grandeur of this land.
His kid becomes an architect too.
I didn't want to be the son of.
It's a blessing and a curse.
And that's what I went through for 40 years.
Will he let his father's masterpiece face the wrecking ball?
Did your heart stop?
Absolutely, my heart stopped.
Or breathe new life into it after he's gone?
Before your dad died, did he tell you he was proud of you? I'm Jamie Colby, and today I'm headed into Portland, Oregon. I'm meeting a man whose strange inheritance is not a family heirloom found in an attic, but an entire house. A house that perfectly frames an age-old problem. How does a son follow in his father's footsteps and still escape his shadow?
My name is Tony Belluschi. I'm an architect, like my father, Pietro. This house is among the many things he designed in his illustrious career. I only figured out what it meant to both of us long after he was gone.
Tony's asked me to meet him here in downtown Portland.
Hi, Jamie. How are you?
I usually meet people in their homes. Why have you brought me here?
I'd like to show you a building my father designed.
That building is the 12-story Equitable, one of America's first glass box towers built back in 1948.
It became one of the most iconic buildings, not only in Portland, but in the country.
Tony's father, Pietro, would go on to design and work on hundreds of landmark buildings, including New York's Pan Am Building, the Bank of America Tower, and St. Mary's Cathedral in San Francisco, New York's Juilliard School of Music, and the Zion Lutheran Church here in Portland. And like so many American success stories, this one begins with an immigrant determined to make the big time. A native of Rome, Pietro Belluschi arrives in Portland in 1925. 3 years later, at age 28, he's already the chief designer at the A.E. Doyle architecture firm.
He would, of course, would work for 15 hours a day in order to prove himself. And he just kept getting raised and raised and raised.
In the late 1930s, Pietro begins designing homes around Portland, featuring locally sourced materials, such as spruce, fir, cedar, and stone. His twist on regional modern architecture, structures that harmonize with their natural settings, is instantly acclaimed.
I was very much impressed by the woods and the wildness of the surroundings.
He became almost like a pioneer that knew more about the local materials than the people who were there and took them for granted.
In 1948, the same year Pietro finishes the Equitable building, he completes this house in Portland for the well-to-do Burks family.
How innovative was that design for the time architecturally?
Very innovative. The combination of the use of woods, the overhangs, woven wood ceilings, cork floors, large floor-to-ceiling windows. He was applauded in many magazines, including ones from Italy.
Pietro considers the home his favorite residential work. Soon enough, the talented architect, now a husband and father of 2 sons, is on the map. In 1951, MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts, appoints him its Dean of Architecture. Around the same time, he begins grooming Tony in the craft.
He was my mentor, and therefore I got to know his architectural vocabulary and philosophy better than anyone.
Pietro retires from MIT in 1965, but he's still in demand. Boston's One Financial Center, the Meyerhoff Symphony Hall in Baltimore, and many more.
He became an international celebrity.
Do you remember feeling that your dad was special?
I kind of picked that up when I was in college and he was the commencement speaker. And I said, whoa.
It's a blessing and a curse.
And that's what I went through for 40 years.
And therein lie Tony's mixed emotions over his strange inheritance. He becomes destined to receive it when his father, probably sitting at his Boston drafting table, gets a long-distance call from Portland. It's Mrs. Burks, owner of that home he'd designed 25 years ago and never forgot. The widow tells Pietro she's putting it up for sale.
He flew out and agreed to buy it on that spot.
That's how much it meant to him.
Absolutely.
It's 1973 when Pietro and his second wife Marjorie return to his beloved Oregon to live in the house he designed as a young man. But his son Tony, who's just starting his own architecture career, wants nothing to do with it or Portland.
I said, I need my own space, and I don't want to be within a 1,000-mile radius of my father and his practice.
Why not just ride his coattails?
Because I had to make it on my own first. I wanted to earn it myself. I didn't want to be the son of.
In Portland or Boston, he's Pietro's kid, so Tony settles in Chicago. With the last name Beluski in the second city, he's more likely to be confused with this guy than his own father. Over time, Tony builds up an impressive portfolio. Cleveland's Galleria at Erie View in 1987, and the American Airlines terminal at O'Hare Airport in 1988.
Did you eventually establish yourself separate and apart from your dad's legacy and reputation?
That's been a lifelong pursuit of mine.
But the son will soon come to think about his famous dad in a new light.
For once, I was able to make the decisions without his input.
And a father finally reveals his true feelings to his son.
How did it make you feel?
Sad, because he couldn't say that in person.
A lot of dads can't.
I understand.
That's next.
But first, our strange inheritance quiz question. In addition to being an architect, Frank Lloyd Wright was also well known in what other field? Was it art dealing, horticulture, or gourmet cooking? The answer when we return. So, world-famous architect Frank Lloyd Wright was also well known in what field? It's A. Wright was a very active Japanese art dealer. During the Great Depression, he made more money from the art trade than he did as an architect.
In the early 1990s, architects Tony to come back to Portland and fix it up. But Portland, and being compared to his father, is exactly what Tony has avoided for his entire adult life.
I was always of the theory that you can never go home.
Tony agrees to fix the roof, but focuses mostly on his career, adding to his impressive list of designs. In Chicago and around the globe, France, Turkey, Saudi Arabia. After Marjorie dies in 2009, Tony and his brother Peter inherit the house that meant so much to their father. But what to do with the old neglected home? The brothers bring in some real estate agents for a market evaluation.
We were going through the house with several realtors, and one of them kind of said to me in a low tone, "You know, this house is a possible teardown."
Did your heart stop?
Absolutely, my heart stopped. I looked at her in total disbelief, and at that moment I said, "Over my dead body."
You weren't going to let it happen.
Absolutely not.
So, Tony buys out his brother and dedicates himself to restoring their father's cherished home to its former glory.
Was it that special?
It was that special. And that's when I said I must commit to it.
But once word gets out, Tony feels some unexpected heat. You might think local preservation types would rejoice that Pietro Beluschi's very own son was coming to the rescue of his work. Not exactly. Peggy Moretti is executive director of Restore Oregon.
There are a million things that can get mucked up when you tackle a historic renovation. You always worry about good intentions don't always translate very well.
Tony's intention is to come up with a design that honors his late father, but satisfies his own creative vision. It calls for some spiritual collaboration.
I channeled him the entire time I was working on the house. What do I do, and what would he do?
But guess what? After consulting with his father's spirit, Tony recognizes who's boss.
And we had a meeting of the minds and did whatever I felt was the right. For once, I was able to make the decisions without his input.
By the spring of 2010, the restoration is in full swing. It's an exhausting process for both Tony and his wife, Marty.
We lived and commuted from Chicago. Every 2 weeks, I flew out here for 2 weeks and went back to Chicago.
In September 2012, after 2 long years and $935,000, the work is finally complete.
I've put so much of my blood, sweat, and tears into this house, probably more than he did to build the original house for the original client.
Coming up,
Oh my gosh, look at all this light.
I take the grand tour, and Tony's career takes an unplanned turn.
Here's another quiz question for you. Built in 1902, Macy's flagship store in New York was the first building with what architectural feature? Revolving doors, modern escalators, or fire sprinklers? The answer in a moment. So, Macy's flagship store in New York was the first building with what architectural feature? It's B, the escalator, and some of the old wooden ones are still in use.
Lots of kids inherit their parents' home, but architect Tony Beluschi doesn't just get Dad's house. He gets a broken-down monument to Northwest design built by his legendary father. By 2013, Tony's restoration of Pietro Beluschi's masterpiece is complete.
Every single square inch of this house has been refreshed, restored, or added onto.
Tony expands the home by more than 700 square feet, adding a bedroom, garage, art gallery, and he replaces his father's shed with a new guest house. But God is in the details, and today I get to see the final product.
Oh my goodness, this is a kitchen I could make magic in.
Well, this is a completely reborn kitchen. Everything had to go. The original one from the 40s ended right here, was only this little alcove here.
And of course, Tony rehabs that woven wood ceiling in the master bedroom.
No way. That's real wood?
This is real wood. It's made up of cedar, spruce, and hemlock, and it was woven together very carefully in place.
I want this.
Tony's updates dovetail with the timeless elements conceived by his father 65 years before.
The fireplace is magnificent.
This is part of the original design. It's the same stone my father used from this stone wall out here, and so he tied the outdoors to the indoors.
It's so beautifully done. Well, it looks to me like you own Portland. This is some view.
This is why we call this the magic place. You never get tired of looking at this.
I wouldn't. What would your dad say if he saw this place today?
He would like it a lot better than the way it was when I inherited it.
I don't know anybody who doesn't love this house.
Count Peggy Moretti, among local preservationists, no longer worried about what Tony might do to his dad's house.
Pietro left a mark here in the Northwest. He's a very special legacy. And Tony added his own mark on the place in a perfect kind of way.
Her group even honors Tony with an award for restoration excellence.
How proud are you to own this house?
Well, it's a dream come true in many respects.
It's a gift to see it.
Well, thank you.
So that's the end of my tour and of Tony's strange inheritance story, right? Not so fast. For Tony, as it turns out, this was just the beginning.
I didn't plan to do this. I wanted to have my own quiet life.
Next, the surprising twist Tony never saw coming. What's your strange inheritance story? We'd love to tell it. Send me an email or go to our website, strangeinheritance.com.
Now back to Strange Inheritance.
For years, Tony Beluski commutes from his Chicago home to Portland to renovate his strange inheritance, this beloved architectural gem designed by his father, Pietro. He ends up in a good place, though one he never expected.
I've sold my practice in Chicago. I've moved here.
You think you'll ever decide I made a mistake?
Absolutely 110% no. This, all of a sudden, is not my father's house. It's our house. And to me, it's something that has become part of us. We don't want to sell it, and it's not going to be on the market and as long as I'm breathing air.
He won't likely be hurting for work anytime soon. Turns out the owners of other homes his dad designed are now calling him.
It's very, very important to sort of protect the legacy and the stewardship of these homes.
Beginning with Eric Wood, who lives in the first house Tony's father ever designed back in the late 1930s. This one, too, falls into disrepair.
We restored it to the new, just like it was in 1938.
Tony really was able to channel his father's thinking about the house. I wake up every morning just amazed at the solace of the place.
The phone doesn't stop ringing.
People come to me thinking maybe I can help them with their project, help them restore a house. I didn't plan to do this coming back to Portland. I wanted to have my own quiet life, but it doesn't exist here.
What's the next step? Where do you go from here?
Now our big project is the Pietro Beluski Resource Center. We hope it'll become a place where people will come to Portland to study Pacific Northwest mid-century modern.
That is a real professional way of further enhancing the legacy of my father.
Such a paradox, this strange inheritance tale. An architect, the son of one of the profession's dazzling stars, keeps far away from the long shadows his father casts. For only once he makes his own name can he turn to what may be his life's most rewarding work, preserving the legacy of the legend now departed.
Before your dad died, did he tell you he was proud of you?
He did. In fact, I have a letter he wrote. He expressed himself in writing a way he couldn't in words. Dear Tony, I don't think I've ever told you how proud I am of you, how pleased of your obvious qualities of spiritual awareness, of your sensitive attitude towards people, your loving father.
How'd it make you feel?
Very happy, very fulfilling. Sad because he couldn't say that in person.
A lot of dads can't.
I understand, but I also loved him and understood him. The older I got, the more I realized how valuable a mentor he was to my life.
Pietro once declined to build in a wooded area near MIT called the Pines. Asked why, he replied, "We could never design a building as beautiful as the trees." That inspired the tribute Tony designed for his dad after he died. This bench along a trail, not far from the house that became Tony's strange inheritance. Check out the plaque. We never could design a building as beautiful as the trees. I'm Jamie Colby. Thanks for watching Strange Inheritance. And remember, you can't take it with you.